Welcome to another episode of Prescription for Life. My name is Linda Golik. I'm the Health and Wellbeing Consultant at Emplify Health by Bellin. And today, my very special guest is Jo Vanden Wymelenberg. She is a behavioral therapist specializing in substance abuse at our Amplify Health Behavioral Health Center. Mm-hmm. So welcome, Jo.
Thank you, Linda.
So glad to have you today. So this is a really, really important topic. And I think this affects a lot of people. According to some of the data I'm seeing, there are more than 53 million people in our country doing what's considered unpaid caregiving. And whether that be for an elderly parent or a disabled child or a spouse or some other family member, a lot of people are in this situation. Mm-hmm. And you are as well.
Yeah, definitely not a full-time caregiver by any means. And some of the kind of scary statistics around that as well are that very often the caregiver ends up passing away before the loved one because they are starting to neglect their own care and they're not doing what they need to for themselves because everything about their focus is more so on this other identified patient, and tend to ignore some of those signs when they need some care. So yeah, my situation is kind of twofold. Well, maybe threefold, because within my therapy work, I get to work with a lot of people who have been or are currently caregivers for loved ones and have done that full time. And seeing how that causes them distress, even years after that loved one passes away, it just seems like they never feel like they've done enough. Then there's also that void of what do I do with my time now that this person is gone? So that loss of identity of who am I? Who am I outside of the caretaker for this person? I think that really hurts their identity. And again, their self-esteem where you're not going to save this person. This is a one-way path most of the time. And that inability to really stop that process from happening no matter how good of a job you do. It isn't about stopping that process. It's about giving them that love and support as they go through that process. So that's one aspect of it. So another aspect of it in my life is my mom. She's 86 years old, and she's gone through a lot of mental and physical health issues, and to the point of where in late February of this year, progressed to where she needed memory care full-time. Mm-hmm. So we all placed her into that and do what we can to help out with all the hospital visits and cares and everything that happens within that world. I'm very lucky that with her, I have 4 other siblings, and we jump in and do what we can to help out, tag team it, make sure there's always somebody around. Mm-hmm. Even though there's often disagreements or you see things a little bit differently sometimes, I think that can be kind of a blessing within the curse because it helps you look at what do I think is best for her? What do they think is best for her? What do we all agree upon, and how can we make this be what's best for her? And then the third aspect of the caregiving in my life is much closer to home, and that is my husband. So he has primary progressive aphasia, which is a atypical type of frontotemporal dementia. And we are probably 6.5 to 7 years since first symptoms, about 4 years since diagnoses. And we have been very blessed that his progression has been quite slow compared to many with this disease. It's still, there's no treatment, there's no cure. So it is still obviously a one-way street. And some of the difficulties within that progression is that it's so very different for every person. So there's no act to follow. There's no guidebook on how do I do this and what is best. And so recognizing every day is different and what are the needs to keep him safe today. Mm-hmm. I don't have to be with him 24/7 right now, which really is a blessing again because I'm still allowed to work. I can still get away for a few hours here and there to get out with my friends if I need to do things together. We have 3 adult children and their spouses. So if there are times like I do a nature retreat with one of my best friends in spring every year, which that just fills me back up.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, one of our sons has him stay with them during that time and allows me that space where I'm not worrying about him.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the steps along the way that I think are very hard for caregivers, and I hear this from other people and see this for myself too, is what is our next step? Like, there's something new that's happening. How do I keep them safe through this, but also protect my sanity, as you go through? And you don't ever want to take away a freedom before it's needed, but you also don't want to wait too long and have something horrific happen. Well, then we have even more guilt, right?
Yeah.
So in the past months, like a few months ago now, we stopped all driving. So he's not able to drive himself anywhere. So learning to ask for help, learning to pull in people wherever I can to he's got these appointments and this going on. And he's still able to do some physical things like pickleball. So some of his ex-coworkers, because he's been retired a little over a year now, needed to retire early because of the disease. But some of his previous coworkers who've also retired play pickleball with him on Wednesdays. And they've been a blessing where one of them now picks him up and brings him to pickleball, things like that. He's doing a research program to try and help with some brain activity through brain balance, getting that left and right hemisphere of the brain speaking to each other a little better. And I'm able to bring him 2 of those days. And then we have another community member, a church member, who brings him the other day that I cannot. So, learning to allow that help to come in when people say, how can I help? To say, well, could you do this?
And I think this is so important, to pause on, because I think people often get into a situation where they're feeling very isolated because they're trying to do this. And this is such a lesson in it takes a village. And it's okay that it takes a village.
Yeah.
And just to remind people of that. So how do you're in such an interesting role because, you're the therapist as well. So, both for yourself and then in the people that you see that are in this situation, like how do you help them realize that? How do you help them let go of that guilt that they can't do it all by themselves?
Yeah. Well, I was definitely struggling with the final cutting off of the driving privileges. Mm-hmm. And I had a couple of friends who pulled me aside one time when we were alone and kind of asked about how much is he driving and what are you allowing? And I said, just really close things. We live out in the country, and I was allowing still just driving to his mom's house or, to pickleball, to some really close local things. And they said, Mary Jo, that's not safe. Like, we're seeing how the reaction time is not so good anymore. You just need to cut that. And having that kind of nudge to say, kind of wake up, like that was helpful. I've also had a few family members and friends who just send me a text and say, hey, I made a double batch of what I was making for supper and I'm dropping it off at your house. They don't ask, they just say, it's coming. Yeah. So when are you going to be home that I can drop this off? And I definitely would have said, no, that's okay, had they asked if they could. And it was just such a blessing. So other people want to help, allow them to help. It isn't a weakness or a failing on your part in any way. It's allowing people to remain connected to myself, to my husband, to know that they are part of our life and they want to help, and it helps them stay connected to us. So that's a good thing.
And I love the idea of just encouraging people, like, help where you feel like you can. So if you have someone in your life, and this applies to if somebody's going through a hard time, somebody has an illness, somebody's grieving, you want to do something, but you don't know what to do. And I am telling you that the person in the situation doesn't know what they need either.
Agreed.
Because they are just juggling all the millions of things that are happening. So if you are the talented person that feels like making an extra batch of something and you think of that person, do that. Or if there's just been a snowstorm and you're like, oh gosh, I have this snow blower and I could go over to so-and-so's house and blow their snow, like just do that. And the giving, the community, I think that can relieve things for people, and also just give them that spark of like hope in that they aren't necessarily alone.
Agreed. Because one of the greatest things that we've come across that we never would have come across had he not had this disease is There is an aphasia association out of Chippewa Falls, and it's run by the University of Eau Claire, their speech pathology department, and their doctors there, Dr. Tom and Dr. Jerry, who run this aphasia camp every fall. And we've gone 3 years already, and we will go every year because it's an amazing community of support. And most of those participants are not primary progressive aphasia. They are forced into this situation because of a stroke or an accident or something horrible that happened that instantly changed everything about their world. So they didn't get a learning curve. They didn't get the time to just slowly work into each new step along the way like I have been allowed to. Most of them were thrust into it 100% right when it happened. And we have some good friends who just had this happen in the last month, and they're thrust into this situation of, holy cow, what do we do with this? And her husband and the 2 adult children are now instant caregivers and trying to figure out what to do with that. What can I handle? What can I not? And boy, take that guidance along the way. Like my husband and I, throughout this aphasia community, with these camps that we go to, have met 2 other couples where the husbands have primary progressive aphasia. So it is the exact same thing. And so those 2 wives and I have our own little group that we never wanted to be part of.
Right.
And we text and we call and we, just stay connected to each other and share tips and share resources. Emma Hemming-Willis, her husband Bruce, has the exact same type that my husband does. And that has been just a godsend to read her book, to look at some of the resources she put out for caregivers. Teepa Snow has some really great podcasts out there, and just videos on YouTube and in books, of course. Anything you can find like that, find who you resonate with, that you like hearing their story, because that is a huge support. And one of the best things that I learned from my reading of Emma's book was there are people who are not going to like what you're doing. They're going to give you a hard time when you take away a freedom or pull something away because they're not okay with it yet. They're not on the same learning curve we are. And when we're with that person that we know we're trying to keep them safe and keep the others around them safe, we might have to make some decisions that are really hard and stay very firm in the fact that, you know what, maybe you think I'm doing this too soon, but I'd rather do that than to do it too late, because to alleviate that guilt would be unbearable.
So when I was first looking at really diving into this topic, and I was doing some research, and I'll be totally honest, it was actually really, it was kind of a downer. And, I often was connecting it to the stress that people are under. And then you shared your story, Mary Jo, and you can see the blessings in all of this. And what a gift that was to me, and I want that to be a gift to others. So tell me about the blessings, that come in being in a situation like yours where you're the primary caregiver.
There are so many, but you have to notice them. You can't get lost in pity, because you know what? There's always somebody out there who's got things worse than you do. So if you want to feel sorry for yourself, keep it brief. Keep it really brief. Look at I wish this wasn't happening, but then pull it back to what am I grateful for? And even looking at not only the things like, well, I'm glad that my husband's is progressing really slow. I'm glad that my mother still knows who I am when I visit. I'm glad that we have people around us, neighbors, friends, and family, who are helping in whatever way they can and just visit with us and stay connected to us, that they're very open about how much they care and loving, because some people don't have that either. I also think we have to look at ourselves and think, would I have ever recognized that I have this much compassion or this much inner strength had we not gone through this journey? How many people have we met because of this journey that we wouldn't have met otherwise? You can't get lost in this part of it that's outside of my personal control, right? The dichotomy of control stuff, stoicism. You have to think about, what am I able to control within this? A lot of that is just our own attitude, how we're going to respond to this stuff as it comes up. Am I going to find that internal mental strength to deal with what I have to? Well, I hope so, right? I pray I do. I know faith is a lot of that for me. What are the parts that are outside of my control? The disease itself, right? We are going to keep him as healthy as we can. We're going to keep him as interactive socially, physically. If physically, my husband does pretty good with biking and pickleball and, you know, taking care of things in the yard. So those are his strengths. He can still play Rummy Cube. You know, we'll stick with the things he can do well, and I'm not going to get lost in the things he can't do anymore. There's no room for that. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So the idea of you have to determine what you're going to focus on. And I always think whatever we focus on grows bigger. Yeah. So if we focus on the negatives and we focus on the glass half empty, that is what grows in our perception. But if we focus on the positives and the glass half full, and look, we have this, and look, we have that. And it is interesting, you know, to me, I often think about, you know, the trials in our lives. It brings you to a place that you would not have otherwise been, and that is a blessing, and it exposes you to people, some extraordinary people that you may not have otherwise met. So again, that power of community and humans being together, and amazing, amazing. So what would your words of advice be? You know, the emotionality of it, the emotional journey that you've been through and that people have been on, in terms of really too, just how do you care for you? How do you kind of, you know, watch out for yourself and continue to keep your own health and well-being also as something on the list, because that was one of the reasons I wanted to bring it to the forefront as a topic, because I know that people are extra challenged to provide self-care for themselves when they're caring for others. So what has that journey looked like for you?
Knowing what it is that fills you back up, because that's going to vary for every person. If it's music, if it's reading, if it's art, if it's social time and connecting with others, time in nature, those are all things that have really helped to fill me back up. And I know that I need to make, sometimes it's only 10 or 15 minutes that I can get, but I still get that time. Our grandkids are probably the very, very best thing that can fill me back up. So even though it's sometimes a lot of work to make that happen, because two of the families live in other states, so we need to make a bigger commitment to go see them. And traveling with my husband is not what it used to be. So that is a much bigger commitment than it used to be, but worth it 100%. There is one, thankfully, that lives close by, and they have 4 kids, so whenever we can, we get them over or we go visit them, even if it's just a brief time. My husband doesn't always handle that very well, so we found a little natural stress calm thing that helps him stay calmer without a medication in those settings. It's not perfect. The grandkids have to still be very patient with him as well. But those are some of the tips and tricks, I would say, that even though it's a lot of work and it's not what it used to be, we can't have this expectation that maybe a vacation is going to look like it did 5 or 10 years ago when we spend time with them. But if it's that important to me to do with them, then we still do it. And on the flip side of that, if I think that a vacation is still a good idea, but it's going to be more work, then I'm not going to enjoy it, then maybe we've passed that, which I think we have now. Other than visiting our kids, vacations are probably not a great thing. They take him out of his natural flow a little too much. But we got to enjoy a lot of things in the last couple of years because we knew this was coming, and that's another blessing. He would probably still be working full-time, and we wouldn't have done these vacations or these extra things if we did not know this was coming. Like I said, a lot of people don't get that luxury. They're thrown into it instantly and unexpectedly. Self-care, too, it can be such simple little things like music. I love music, but there are days where my stress level is at its limit. It's so simple, but I can listen to music that doesn't have words, just sort of a soothing instrumental stuff that is calming to me, where maybe the music that has the words and the singing or is too fast beat kind of amps me up more. I have to know myself enough to say, let's put something different on. Yeah. And I watch myself, like, I still acknowledge, okay, I'm crabby today, or I'm tired today, or I'm hungry right now, or I need to get to the doctor. How am I going to make this work out, right? And I have to know, like, what do I have to do to get that to be okay right now so that I'm in a good place? So acknowledge, all right, I'm feeling this way. I'm going to deal with that and write about it, journal maybe, talk to a friend about it. But for right now, I need to do A, B, C.
And just being in tune with that, like just kind of knowing, like, oh, I'm feeling not so good right now, and I need to do something, and not just hope it's going to go away, but take some action to get some time to get yourself, back to. I think that's a big thing we talk about in health and well-being a lot, is that as much as we want to take care of others and just people on a regular basis, just trying to be everything they're trying to be, I always like to remind people, like, you can't pour from an empty cup. Like, you have to care for yourself, or you're not going to be a good mom, a good daughter, a good coworker, whatever those things have to be. Like, humans have limitations.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
It is. It's not being selfish to take a little time for yourself. It's actually selfless, because you are a better person for those that you're around, finding that balance.
What is your hope? What is your hope for the future? Like, as a caregiver, and not that, I want you to use a crystal ball or anything to worry about what's going to come down the line, but what's your hope in the days, weeks, months ahead?
The same thing I pray for all the time, just that I will have the grace and patience and wisdom to know what we need on each of those days, because it's going to be ever changing. That I know that there are going to be days I feel overwhelmed, but I have to take care of me, I have to take care of him, I have to deal with others who are also dealing with that in their emotions, and to not be 10 years post their life, still beating myself up because just no matter how much I gave, it wasn't enough, right? I just am so sad when I see people who've given it all, who just still are beating themselves up so many years later because they never feel like it was enough. So to me, that shows that maybe during the process, something got missed with them taking care of themselves and knowing who they were and that their presence matters. I hope that as he goes through this experience, well, and my mom too, that whatever I can do to make that process a better one for them, that I'm doing it to the best of my ability.
I think you are. You are. An interesting thing that you had said to me too, and another reason why this is such an important topic, we talked about just the increased illness and potential health issues that caregivers do experience.
Yeah, so recognize that. Don't skip your yearly physicals. Don't skip if you need massages to keep your back well, or chiropractor appointments, or anything else that you know is keeping your body and your mind healthy as you go through this process. Don't put it by the side. It's not going to serve you well in the end.
Yeah, great. Any other thoughts, Mary Jo? Anything that we didn't get to cover today that you wanted to mention? Any other little nuggets to share with our audience today?
I would say just know that you are doing the best that you can in whatever circumstance you're in, and that is enough most days.
Yeah. And Mary Jo, you really are, we like to feature these lifesaver stories where we talk about people, being you and belonging and be a lifesaver. And I absolutely can see how you're a lifesaver. I mean, not only for your husband and your mom, but for all the people that you're, working with in your role here at Emplify Health, and just the example that you're giving our audience today and what that looks like. So how do you then stay true to you? Like, how do you stay true to you through this journey?
Yeah, well, as I said, faith is a big part of that. Connection with the people that I look up to and care about the most. That whether it's a text message or a phone call or a walk with one of those people that are my guiding lights, I use them as much as I can.
Yeah, so important, so important. you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
I think that's one of our major messages today.
Agreed.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Mary Jo, thanks for coming in. Thanks for taking the time. I know you're a busy lady, so I so appreciate having you here today. Thank you to our audience. We hope that this inspires you and just reminds you, if you're in a caregiving role, if someone you know is in a caregiving role, you aren't alone. We are in this together. Please reach out. Please ask us questions. Please let us know if there's anything that we can do for you. But know that there are other humans that are rooting for you and want to help you along this journey. So thanks for tuning in today. Please like, subscribe, share this podcast, and we'll see you next time.